What's happening, my friends? My name is Nathan. Welcome to Motorcycle Training Concepts. In yesterday's video, we talked about the 4 major safety concerns, one of them being road hazards. In today's video, we're going to go over that first topic, road hazards. We're going to go in a little bit more in depth about it. What are the road hazards that you can face out there and kind of how to avoid them. The slightest variation in the road conditions, you'll feel that on a motorcycle. In a car, you can just drive over it. Your suspension, your tires are all really good. On a motorcycle, anything, a tar snake, a crack in the road, some debris, some gravel, some sand, anything on the road is going to give you some input in your handlebars, and too much of that input is going to cause you to lose control. So the universe can throw an basically infinite number of road hazards at you, but I broke it down into 7 of the biggest concerns, in my opinion, of road surface hazards that can be particularly dangerous for you. So the first one I'm going to talk about today is gravel. And you hear gravel a lot. It's gravel this, gravel that, the gravel got me. Loose rocks, dirt, or sand is going to be on the road. It's going to cause you to lose traction if you're not careful, but you can drive over it and be just fine. Where gravel starts to become a safety concern on a motorcycle is when you start adding in inputs. So acceleration, tires looking for traction on the road to get you going, applying too much front brake, applying too much rear brake. Those are going to be things that rely on traction to slow you down, but if that traction gets washed out by things like dirt on the road, then you could lose traction and crash. My advice for going over gravel is if you have to go over it, just be as upright as possible through the turn and go slow as possible. And if you have to do any kind of braking or accelerating, just easy on the inputs. If you're slowing down, focus your rear brake over your front brake until you get past the gravel, then go back to normal operation of using your front brake more often than your rear brake. The second thing to go over today is potholes. As I mentioned in the last video, potholes are things like in a car, it can shake you to your core. It's going to sound bad. It hits the frame, your suspension bottoms out in the car, but you just drive over it and you can keep going and you're like, oh, that kind of hurt. On a bike, it's completely different. You hit a pothole on a bike, there's a lot of input going into your handlebars that you didn't put there, and that could startle you, cause you to freak out, cause damage to your suspension. If you're driving with one hand or you're kind of relaxed, you're not really focused a whole lot on what's going on, and then this pothole surprises you, especially if you hit a pothole at an angle and it turns your tire when you're not expecting it, that can be a bad day too. You don't want to hit them. So the best thing to do is to keep a space cushion between you and the car in front of you. That buys you time. So if you notice that they avoid something, or if they hit something, or if something pops out from underneath the back end of their car into your path of travel, you want to have the time to make a decision to avoid it, whether that's swerve left, swerve right, or worst case scenario, you're going to go over it and you can't go left or right and you have to just go straight over it. What you can do is just power on that throttle. It's going to loosen your front suspension just enough so that you should be able to glide over it, no problem. You don't want to try to avoid it last second and then end up hitting it anyway while you're in an invasive maneuver. That's going to be a bad day. So if you have the time to avoid it, do so. If you don't run out of time, just accept that you have to go over it, brace for it, power through it, and then as soon as you're past the pothole, it might be a good idea to pull over and check your rims, check your tires, make sure everything's good to go. So the third thing we're going to talk about today is railroad tracks, and for the sake of discussion, I'm going to throw cattle guards in there too. So on this side of the US, we've got cattle guards, basically just a 10-foot wide metal grate that separates the city from the wildlife, but it's pretty much the same thing. It's uneven terrain, it's all metal, and when it rains, it gets really slippery to the point that if you see one coming, you know you're going to cross one and it's raining, you are going to lose traction. It's going to happen, but if you go slower than 35 miles an hour, you're just increasing the amount of time that you don't have that traction. So through personal experience, I've found the best way to go over those is just maintain your speed. If the speed limit's 50, just go 50. But know that while you're over it, while you're crossing it, you're going to be losing traction. And then the moment you're past it, the traction's going to come back. Understanding that you're going to lose traction, it's not a matter of if, it's you're going to lose it, can help you out because you're braced for it, you're expecting it. You can keep your inputs loose, you can keep everything loose and just coast over it. What I don't recommend is like walking your bike over it, because if you fall down and you're on a railroad track, that's going to be a bad day. Trying to get it off the railroad track is just not fun. So just be calm, cool, and collected when you cross these things. You're going to be just fine, I promise. Since we talked about railroad tracks and raining, number 4 is going to be just slick surfaces in general, wet or slick. If it's super hot outside, like it can start melting the oil and the tar and like other areas of the road, that can make those slippery too. Or conversely, if it's super cold out, maybe it hasn't even rained, it's just cold out, maybe a little morning dew outside, the paint lines on the road can get really slippery too. And my general rule of thumb is anything that reflects the light is way more slippery than regular asphalt's going to be. Again, if you have to cross any of these because maybe the painted lines are in the turn lane, just cross them very smoothly, easy on the inputs, easy on the outputs, and don't let it surprise you. Number 5 is going to be debris, and this could be like tree branches, leaves, trash, stuff that falls out of the back of vehicles, construction materials, cones, stuff like that. Wind can blow them on there, again, falling out of the back of vehicles. somebody else hits something. There was a shovel that flew at me the other day because just like the Looney Tunes stepping on a rake and it comes up and hits you, a car hit a shovel, like the pointy end of a shovel, and it caught air and just started launching through traffic and bouncing around other cars. Stuff. I cannot stress to you enough that there are things out there that you just cannot expect to happen. Debris is one of those. You can go on a ride one morning and then come back an hour later and there's debris on the road that there wasn't earlier. So this just goes back to being vigilant. Keep a space cushion between you and the cars in front of you. Be aware. Don't get complacent about things. If you've already passed an area a couple times, there could be debris there the third or fourth time that you've passed by it. And if you see something in the road, try to swerve left, try to swerve right. If you have to go over something, brace for it. Just be aware of it, commit to it. Don't try to swerve last second if it means you're going to hit it while swerving. So number 6 we're going to talk about is uneven surfaces. And this could be things like speed bumps, railroad tracks, again, cattle guards, tram tracks, construction zones, if they tear up the road. Like I mentioned before, your contact patch for a motorcycle is about yay big. So you feel every input from the road to your bike through the tires up to the handlebars. And if you're not careful, if you're not prepared, if you don't see it, if it surprises you, those are going to be scenarios that's going to catch you off guard and cause you to lose control. Being deliberate in your actions is the best way to get around these things. So speed bumps, slow it down. If it's an uneven road, maybe there's construction, you have to get up on a bump. You don't want to just graze over while you're going. You want to be able to go as perpendicularly as possible. So if you have to go over a bump in the road that's parallel to you, like a tram track or construction zones, do so with purpose, commit to it. If it's perpendicular to your travel and there's a bump in the road, uneven surfaces. If it's a larger obstacle like a speed bump, then you're supposed to slow down for those. But if you're traveling at speed and it's a last minute thing, then treat it like a debris on the road. Treat it like something on the road, like an obstacle that you're just gonna have to commit to and just travel over it. And if you have to check your bike later, do so. And the last thing to talk about today is animals, which are the most unpredictable of road hazards. They get a vote too. But other than regular road debris where people are paid to clean it up, or maybe you can clean it up and keep your community a little cleaner, animals just show up. They've got a mind of their own, literally, and you can't avoid them other than just avoiding riding. But if an animal pops up in front of you, and just if it's a deer or a dog or anything like that, the best thing you can do is apply progressive brake pressure, buy yourself some time, slow down. Slowing down is a good default. It's a good immediate response to train in your mind that you see an animal, immediately slow down, because if you just let them cross, great. If they try to attack you, then slowing down is going to give you that kind of, I can juke them out. But if it's a deer or something else that just stops in the road, then slowing down is going to make it so that you have the time and space available to decide to swerve. And worst case scenario, if you do hit them, you're traveling at a lower speed, which is going to be a lot more forgiving to you, especially if you're wearing gear. And the general rule of thumb for any of these is step number 1 is apply brakes to buy yourself time. You can swerve left, swerve right. Those are the best options because you can just avoid it completely. But if you have to go over it for any reason, do so with commitment, do so with the awareness, do so with caution in mind. And then if it's a bigger obstacle, go ahead and pull over, check your bike, and make sure everything's good to go. All right, thank you for watching. I hope you all ride safe and ride smart, and I'll see you in the next video.